Welcome in, everybody. How you doing? It's a beautiful day in New Mexico. We're excited to be here again with you guys. Here we are doing our wonderful podcast. Thank you guys so much for all your support, all your comments of Cactus Crossfire. As always, I'm one of your hosts, Sisto Beta. I'm here with my co-host, Eddie Ablisser. Eddie, how are things out in Utah?
Life is good, Sisto. Life is good. Good to see you. And while you're getting all the love on the socials, on every social site, every single person gets their keyboard warrior, like their machismo racing inside of them, wanting to come and attack me for some reason.
Well,
Sisto, what's up with that?
Well, it's because, you're prickly. That's what it is. It's you're totally prickly. And, everybody doesn't like it when you're so prickly. And I just have to say that, I try not to be, I've learned over the years to be less prickly, but I can be prickly at times. So there you go.
I know, but I think I'm older than you, so I don't know what that's saying about me. But
well, it could say that, maybe, some of us, it just takes a little while longer to learn a few lessons.
Yeah, I walk it. Listen, the door says push and I pull. I don't know what's wrong with me, but that's how my life is.
Well, and we don't really have that problem in New Mexico because the state capital is a roundhouse. So we just go round and round and round and round and round in a circle.
I've been there we do it together, and it's very apropos for New Mexico state government, isn't it?
It is. It's great for us. We love our building. We love our capital. We love our green chili, and we love a lot of other things. But the great part is that, we've kicked off this. This is our third episode. And as Eddie was saying, people are following us on social media. They're following us on our website. They're signing up on our website to get the subscription. I had one of my tias this morning call me, and she's excited because she's getting emails from me about, that the new episodes are hitting the airwaves. So she'll be getting the one about this one. And I hope that she'll tune in and continue to share it with all her friends at the senior center, who I know they keep saying, who are those cute guys? And I keep saying, they're prickly though.
That's the beautiful thing. But that's the beautiful thing about social media. We have multiple ways for everyone to engage with us, right?
Exactly.
Like we have our own personal social media page, right, Sisto? We've got Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn for those professional, more mature audiences. But Sisto, like the Cactus Crossfire, what we do here when we're really dissecting some really important issues dealing with primarily Western states, Southwest states, politics, but really things that are applicable to all across the nation.
I know, and we
have a blog.
Yeah, and we've got a great lineup today. We're going to be talking about some great stuff. We're going to be talking about, what does messaging look like? And we're not going to just talk about political messaging, but sometimes messaging that just happens out there in the public that turns into political messaging. At the same time, we're always going to come back. I'm the data guy. I love talking about data. We're going to start talking about, voter pulse and voters and what they're doing and what's happening with the different segments and cross sections of voters in our country. And then at the same time, where does those voters land on policy? Where are they at? What are they thinking? What are they talking about? So we've got a huge show ahead of us. So let's jump right into it. So Eddie, one of the biggest things that happened just recently is we saw the pop world get sucked into the political world with a very provocative ad. I think you might know the ad I'm talking about.
Provocative? Listen, I have been trying to make Canadian tuxedos happen for 20 years. And in the Southwest, denim on denim used to work. But then I get married and my wife just yells at me the moment I walk out with different colored denim matching on each other. It drives me crazy. But here, this beautiful young lady comes out, changes the entire universe, and people are getting freaked out. I don't know what for. For me, the joke has always been that she's bringing back Canadian tuxedos once again and making those popular.
Let's take a look and see what exactly people were getting all hyped up about.
I'm not here to tell you to buy American Eagle jeans. And I definitely won't say that they're the most comfortable jeans I've ever worn. Or that they make your butt look amazing. Why would I need to do that? But if you said that you want to buy the jeans, I'm not going to stop you. But just so we're clear, this is not me telling you to buy American Eagle jeans.
Sydney Sweeney has for Kings.
You see what I did there, right?
So
Well,
it looks like we've doubled down on what.
listen, blood leads, right? And sex sells. That's the American cult. Like, that's what it is. If it bleeds, it leads. And sex sells. This is a company that is using the assets that were given to them or they paid for to sell their product. And why are people freaking out about it? I don't understand this, Sisto.
Well, I mean,
Sydney Sweeney, she did a great job.
But this is the thing, Eddie, from your perspective, what was the thing that sparked off the controversy behind these ads? Where's it coming from? What do you think it is?
So I think there's a little bit of a play. So let me dissect it, because I think the Karens of the world got a little too uncomfortable, right? Because you've got a younger lady, close-ups on various parts of the person. I know that there's some level of discretion that people should be having, but on the flip side, I truly believe, based on what I read and the outroar, I think there's a little bit of a manufactured crisis going on here. I think that the Republicans dove deep into some very deep, dark Reddit rabbit holes and found some, basement trolls that were criticizing the American Eagle. And then they pushed all their leaders to stand up and protect Sydney Sweeney and say there's nothing, what is wrong? What's wrong here? So I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, I think there's just this ridiculousness of hypercriticism over things that honestly have been time-proven strategies for many years in marketing and advertising, and then manufactured crisis. I think the Republicans used it as a way to, sort of poke fun.
I can see where you would think that the Republicans use this. I think they've capitalized on it, but I think that what ended up happening is that you had a president who was up against the line on a rope line because if you look at the timeline of when all this happened, right?
Yeah.
Is somebody just threw out, hey, what do you think about, Sydney Sweeney and her jeans? And anybody who's in politics knows this term. Whatever comes out of the president's mouth, as far as his opinion, is a political starting gun for debate and conversation around anything.
Yep.
And that's what Trump knew he was doing in, cloaking her in that atmosphere. Immediately people started going into her background and looking at, while her mom had a MAGA birthday party and all these other things. But
she's a registered Republican.
She's a registered Republican
Trump.
out of Florida, and she supported Trump and all these things to try to, point out that, this is not somebody that we want on our jean ads. Now, for me personally, I watched it. Did I really want to buy jeans after it? Did I want to buy jeans for anybody that I know in my family or friends? Not really. I mean,
what are you talking about? A Canadian tuxedo, Sisto.
Yes.
I want to wear denim on denim.
But if we're gonna have a Canadian tuxedo, we both know what we're gonna do, right? We're gonna go
a bolo tie.
We're gonna get our bolo ties, but we're also gonna get either Wranglers, Levi's.
Yes.
Because we are in the West, right? We're gonna get Wranglers or Levi's because that's the Western way. Right. The Western way is to follow one of those two models. And this is something that, when I was in college, we had a lot of conversations about of how people market things towards different communities. And I did a huge paper on, just looking at us, Cactus Crossfire here. If you take a look at our color scheme, it's that Sonoma orange, the sienna colors, the greens, the turquoises. And when you see those colors, you automatically think the West. Well, why do you think that? Well, way back in the day when, the Santa Fe Railroad started coming across from the East Coast to the West, there was a guy named Fred Harvey. And Fred Harvey picked that color scheme. And that color scheme has stuck with us in the West forever. Now, in comparison to the Sydney Sweeney situation, and to your point, what did Fred Harvey do when he was building his empire of little service stations across the Southwest and all of these little train stops, they had Fred Harvey restaurants that were run by Harvey girls. Not Harvey boys, not the Hardy boys, but Harvey girls. So we can see how this narrative, even back to what my niece would call ancient times, that, you know, that this has been something that's been happening in marketing, in business throughout the entire country for years. And, you know, they knew exactly where they were going with this. The original ad had, you know, my eyes are blue and so are my jeans, right? And people took that as at a slant at, you know, you have to have blue eyes to, you know, have really good jeans. Well, I don't know. Are American Eagle jeans that great? Do they hold up like Levi's and Wranglers? I don't know.
I mean, I think it was meant for a different crowd, Sisto, but like, look at what has happened since then. All right. So I do think Republicans created this manufactured crisis to expose certain factions within the Democratic circles of the hypersensitivity, right? The Karen crowd that just cries about everything. Now, moving past that and then criticizing the Republicans for making something up, looking back, well, what did this commercial do, right? It sparked conversation. You look on social media right now across every venue, but TikTok mainly, right? You have colleges, sororities across the country doing various TikToks, creating this narrative of, hey, we are proud of our genes, our genetics, who we are, right? A pride in self. And you know what? The diversity that I've seen in some of those videos has been quite widespread. Like, it's been really good to see the diversity that comes out from some of these sororities that are pushing that narrative. But I think that the biggest thing here, right, is the comfortability, right, in advertising and commercials and marketing and intersectionality of politics to just sort of like laugh at ourselves a little bit, right? Laugh at the contemporaneous conversation that's happening around us, not take it so seriously because, you know, we go back, right? Look at the Bud Light uproar. I mean, in the same vein, Sisto, I'm like, why are people so mad about the Bud Light uproar? This, individual, Dylan Mulvaney, right? I had to make sure. For some reason, I couldn't confuse that name with the comedian. But there was such a pushback, right, around a transgendered individual in a Bud Light commercial, drinking a Bud Light. And I don't get it. What's the problem? What's the big deal? Who cares?
I mean,
right?
But this goes to the whole, so one, back to your point about, the kids using the TikTok and you're talking about sororities and everything else. Well, that's Gen Z. Gen Z is going to latch onto something and they're going to get out there and they're going to start, and we're going to be talking about them a lot more at the end of this podcast. But at the same time, there, and you've talked about this before, Eddie, is that there's this whole cancel culture out there on both sides. Right. So there's the cancel culture of we don't like the trans person. And, the Republicans have been very good. As much as they say that we do it, the Democrats do it, Republicans do it just as much as well. I mean, look at what they did with Bonner. Look at what they did with McCarthy. Look at what they did with Judge Curiel. All of these folks either stood up against the norm within their respective groups, and they're immediately targeted for cancellation. And so I think that's where, when we were looking at the polls last week, we were seeing that people are, pulling away from wokeism and they don't like it anymore and everything else. It's not just on one side of the aisle. It's on both sides. Yeah. And folks have to start realizing that unless we get back to what you and I have been talking about on this podcast, what you and I have committed ourselves to do through this platform, is having a meaningful dialogue, we're just going to get caught up in the story. And that's what they want for us to do, right? They want us to hear, and it's all smoke and mirrors. Everybody always says, when I was growing up, there was a lot of politicians that used to tell me all the time, fake it till you make it, use smoke and mirrors, don't look over here, look over here to see what's going on. And we're going to see more and more of that, until, voters start tuning into cactuscrossfire.com and educating themselves on what's really happening in the public.
Yeah. And I mean, this is a commercial for a product, right? They are selling. They did. The minds behind that effort, Sisto, should get a fat bonus because they did a great job. But the same way we talked about it with the congressional races in New York, where the congressman comes out and says it's time to unbleep America. Like, this is what I'm talking about. There's this creative level that is being interjected into our political discourse that I think is important. But I also think it's really important for individuals that are embrace this to have a little bit of levity to the conversation, right? Like, looking at it for what it is. It's a very brilliant tactic to capture the attention, the talking points in the nation, and it accomplished exactly what it was set for, right?
I mean,
and so that's our goal.
And it is so amazing. Yeah, I mean, this is what we do, right? This is what we do in the public relations space. We try to craft the narrative. I don't think that the PR firm that was hired that wrote the script for this ad, and when they were thinking of hiring Sydney Sweeney, actually knew that this would be the blowback. Maybe they did. If they did, man, every company in the country should be reaching out to them to figure out how they can get their company's name on everything, including this podcast, right? And actually, if anybody from American Eagle happens to tune in, go to our website. You can find, because Eddie really wants to bring back that Canadian tuxedo.
Well, listen, there's some laws in the West that they're looking to disallow certain brands of denim being worn in public places. So, the Tri-Strategies team is your public affairs solution to ensure that your rights are protected.
Especially your right to wear whatever jeans you would like to wear.
That's right.
There
That's right. All right. We have worn these jeans long enough. Let's move on.
Yeah, and we've got, we've been looking at, the polls and the polls and the polls are coming, right? We're starting to see all kinds of information coming out. What we've been seeing is a lot of polling in regards to the Latino vote. But this last time go around, what we saw was a lot of polling in regards to younger voters, younger Latino voters, and where they're landing and where they're going. And it's interesting to see, nonetheless, that we're seeing that more Latino voters are starting to gravitate towards, registering as a Republican. I mean, here in New Mexico, the Republican Party got really excited because their voter registration numbers are starting to climb in New Mexico, but not to the level of independence. So it's kind of a push, but rather than a pull. But also at the same time, where those younger voters are starting to land. And I mean, Eddie, you and I come from the world. This is where we met. This is where we cut our teeth. Everybody saw us as these young, prickly guys, not these old prickly guys like we are now, that could move younger voters, right? They thought that, we'll throw Sisto and Eddie up on the stage and they just get these young people all fired up and they do a great job. And you have a lot of experience in that because as a candidate, right, you have to go and look at who you're going to target and everything else. So let me ask you this, my good friend Ed. When you ran your campaign, how much time did you spend on the youth vote?
Oh, man. It was 2004, right? Peak engagement. I think the war in Iraq was going on. Pat Tillman, a very prominent figure in Arizona politics, had been killed in friendly fire. We didn't know that yet. Found it a little bit later. Tremendous engagement, tremendous distrust of what's happening nationally, the lies of what was told about the war necessarily. And then I get involved and we're looking at our district. I had about a 4% deficit, Sisto, in my first race. And I had to make up points somewhere. I went by Edward Ableser on purpose, and I creatively, my first flyer, we're gonna have to find this somewhere, but I had a picture of me pounding in a yard sign, but an older gentleman was holding that sign, and I did that on purpose. Like, that was the front. It was me and this older gentleman. And I went door to door with this flyer, and everyone thought that older guy was Edward Ableser, who's running, right? So I did this intentionally. I tried to remove this 25-year-old individual who's running for a statewide office and sort of trick voters in thinking, oh, it wasn't this youngster that's out there running for office, right? It's this older guy. And it worked, frankly. Like, that was a successful component. I also spent hours upon days walking, registering voter college students from Arizona State University in their dorms, talking to student clubs. We spent so much time and so much money talking to young voters. And, to jump to the end, it didn't work. Not one bit. Young people do not vote. It didn't change the pendulum at all, right? I went back and we looked at our crosstabs, and maybe my efforts increased voter turnout amongst the 18 to 22 population by 0.5%, but it wasn't even significant enough because the trend of voter turnout that election was significant across the board on all crosstabs. But I just remember, I'm like, we got Rock the Vote to come out. I remember NoFX did this huge concert in my district. I got to stand on stage. We had Foo Fighters come before John Kerry that election term in Tempe Town Lake. There's a video of me. I got to introduce Foo Fighters to the crowd.
Foo Fighters.
Young people don't
You
vote.
were doing Foo Fighters. That's who you were.
Foo Fighters.
Foo Fighters.
The Foo Fighters.
So,
Man.
So at that time, that was 2007 is what that
Four.
was? 2004.
That was
so 2004, you were how old?
20, well, I was 25 turning, I was 25 turning 26, which would have been the year I could have been elected.
Yeah.
Right?
So,
because you can't seat. You had to be 26 to serve in the legislature.
Yeah. So this is the fun part. This is what I'm going to ask you. Okay. So that age demographic that you were targeting then, okay, they would fall under what category of generational labeling? They would be Gen X, right?
I mean, maybe some millennials. No, you're right. They would have been Gen X.
They would have all been Gen X.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
You're Gen X. I'm Gen X.
Yeah.
So,
but I think the lower threshold might have been millennial. But you're right.
So if we're going to talk about Gen X, I'm going to put my Gen X hat on.
Let's see it.
Because can you see that? There you go. Generation X, raised on hose, water, and neglect. That's us, right?
That's
if anybody sees me around Albuquerque, they see me wearing this hat. They see it says here, established in 1976. Okay,
that's right.
So the reason that I'm bringing up the Gen X is because at that time, right, we were the ones that we weren't voting. You said it was a 0.5% that was showing up. And then eventually, what do we turn over to? Now, the target demographic voter, the gross bigging population of voters that are happening in the electorate right now, Gen X. And we're talking about millennials. We're talking about Gen Z as the new younger voters that are coming in. Mm-hmm. And in comparison to Gen X, millennials and Gen Z are a lot more engaged than Gen X ever was at that age.
Okay, yeah, but I mean, so back then, Sisto, it was the Facebook, and you only had 4 friends, and you had
I had
MySpace,
148. I had
and
148.
Tom told you what you listened to.
Yeah,
like of course they're more engaged because they get it on their fingertips. It's on their wristwatch. They have it. Every 15 seconds they lose their attention, have to look at a device to figure out what is happening. Right. So you're right. I will absolutely, agree with you that the newer generations of voters have more at their disposal to engage. The question is, do they vote? Do they come out on that Tuesday in November and select a candidate? Do they go beyond the presidential race? That's the other factor. Do they care about down ballot votes? Do they care about propositions that are happening in their states? Do they care about primaries and mid-year elections?
And you know what though? But the interesting part though in that though, Eddie, is what I was looking at these Western states, and out of all of the states in our area, only one speaker of the House is not a member of Gen X. One. So who's running the show, buddy? Who's
Yeah.
making the decisions at the local level? Who's being engaged right now? Who's making the decisions? It's us. Because now we're the prickly old guys, right? Now we're that. Now
Or you're the prickly old guy.
I am the prickly old guy, and I'll own it because at the end of the day, somebody in the group has to be the adult in the room. So respect your elders. So,
but that's what we always go to, Sisto, right? But that's the play, right?
Yeah.
And that's what you and I both remember, that running in, doing campaigns, hitting the ground, raising our hands in a campaign meeting and sending a suggestion only to have it thrown back in our face.
Yeah.
Right. Like, there's a narrative. There's an article that came from Mother Jones that talked about my race, and I think 3 other races nationally, the Deanie babies. They're calling me a Deanie baby because of Howard Dean.
Oh, yeah.
Right. The infamous Howard Dean, the Howard Dean yell. I mean, is it not just asinine to think that a political candidate lost their momentum because he was perceived as aggressive or over the top with a very bizarre yell in Iowa? I mean, and the new generations don't know anything about that, Sisto. They have no clue. The people that worked on his campaign and were in Iowa, you and I had so many friends that went out to Iowa working for Howard and came back devastated. Oh, we're just going to have to support John Kerry, the boring candidate, right? You remember that?
Yeah, but I mean,
but
we
all
also
got derailed.
But the other thing that we faced during that time is what now we're seeing with Gen X, Gen Z and millennials, is are they ready to step up? Are they ready to lead? Are they ready to be engaged in the conversation? We have a number of millennials in the New Mexico legislature right now, and New Mexico is very different than most other states, where we don't pay our legislators to sit there for 30 or 60 days out of the year and then attend all the interim committees. So anybody who goes out and looks up New Mexico legislators on those social media platforms, you'll hear these younger guys saying, I can't afford to be in the legislature. My voice can't be heard because I can't afford to be here. And, but that causes me to have a little bit of skepticism about these elected officials. And it's simply because, not because that they're not ready for it. It's just like, did you not know running that you were not going to get paid? I mean, that's a conscious decision you make in New Mexico. And you see that, and we see that in some of the other races. We saw it down in the special election down in Arizona. We had a millennial running out there and was, even when AOC got elected, you remember when AOC got elected and she was saying, I can't afford to live in DC and serve as a member of the Congress. And
she was sleeping in her office, right?
Yeah, she was sleeping. Well, Senator Heinrich, he slept in his office too. But Senator,
a lot of members sleep in their office.
Yeah,
like that is a norm. Yeah.
So but then we get down to, like, in these polls that we're starting to see what people care about and what matters to people in these polls, and the spectrum of the differences between Gen X and millennials and Gen Z. But I saw through all of this polling, there was one common thread. And that common thread is the fact that everybody has an economic issue right now. Every age group,
Well, there's this new trend I was reading on CNN. So the Gen Z, the millennials, right? So this is the quiet quitters, right? The travel the world, explore, find yourself, right? Authentic self. I'm still finding my authentic self. I'm not quite sure where that person is, but nonetheless, these individuals, which great for them, right? They're moving around, they're enjoying certain things, but CNN is reporting, like, at higher rates, this population is moving back in with their mom and dad because they have spent their savings after graduating college, working very hard, and now they don't know where else to go. Right. So now they have to reboot. But it's not a bad thing. This is the crazy thing. The poll shows that many of these millennials, Sisto, they don't see it as a bad thing. They see it as a positive, a way to take a breather, a respite, get back out there, make some money, and then go travel the world again. I mean, talk about worldview shifts, right? Talk about complete differences. I mean, I think Gen Xers are like, our brains are exploding. Like, what are you talking about? We have to work. We have to save money, or else, right? Or else we're living on the streets.
Well,
Like that's the way our brains are.
And it's amazing to me when we start talking about Gen X, because you remember in that early aughts, late 90s, after the Clinton years, Clinton's big thing is that everybody should be able to have a house, right? It was the chicken in a pot type of a message that he had. And I remember graduating from high school and coming into college and seeing a bunch of my friends who owned a house. They were able to buy a house because they had absolutely phenomenal credit because they never used it, right? 21, 22, and they're buying these huge houses out on the west side of Albuquerque. We threw some great parties at those houses. I mean, there was a lot of Foo Fighters being played there. But at the same time, I'm looking at them now, and they've either filed for bankruptcy 2 or 3 times already, right? Or they have, they're still in that same house and they haven't been able to move up in the economic scale to get to somewhere better. And now they're faced with, higher costs of things, cuts to, their insurance rates are going up. Their water bills are going up. Their gas and electric bills are going up. They can't afford it. But
Cost of living.
But then you have, like you said, millennials and Gen Z. And what are they doing? They're staying at home.
Yeah.
They're not leaving. But why
buy a house? Why have a mortgage?
Yeah, why buy a house? Which is
my mom's got a great room that I could sleep in for free.
But it's also a very European thing, right? I mean, like you go to Europe, you go to Italy. Yeah. There's guys who look like me who still live with their mom, and it's totally okay, right? Not for me. I mean, I'm not one of those guys who wants to go home and live with dad. Even though my dad has a pretty sweet bachelor life in his older years, getting older, but he was at one point he's like, let's be the odd couple, and I'm like, no, I'm not interested in doing that with you, Dad. Gen X was not going to live with a boomer. That was not going to happen. Once we cut the cord, we're done and we're out. But different generation, different thought process. Millennials, Gen Z. I think that there are products, there are kids in some sense, and what we wanted for them is what the generation before us wanted for us, which is something better. And they realize that their kids that millennials and Gen Z can't make it out there on their own. And if they have to stay with mom and dad until they're 26, 27 before they can afford a house, then just stay with mom and dad. And also the other big part of it is, Eddie, our generation was able to buy bigger homes than what our parents had, right?
Yep.
So we have more space. I mean, you and I have been on multiple business calls where you're working from home, I'm working from home. I hardly ever hear your kids, ever. I don't know if you're just telling them, shh, be quiet, but they're in another part of the house.
There's an amazing tool that I learned from the baby boomers. It's called masking tape, right? And you wrap them up and they can't say nothing. All right, all you people, listen, I was a child therapist. That's a joke. Let's go back to the Sweeney. It's all funny. But the point is, right? It's economics, Sisto. It's economics. The Gen Zs, the Gen X, the millennials, the boomers, the greatest generation, everyone, it comes back to economy. It always comes back to the economy. And what is happening? What are we seeing out there, right? Mortgage rates, borrowing and lending is still at the highest. I mean, one of my favorite things sort of, to geek out to is watching the fights happening with Powell and Trump and, his push to get the Fed to actually lower interest rates so people will infuse more spending in the economy, which more money in the economy, right, creates more circulation, which creates more spending, consumer behavior, which then everyone's like, oh, Trump's the best president ever because people are spending money and there's more money in the economy. But here's Powell that's just holding back and keeping those rates really, really high, and maybe for a good reason. I'm not an economist, but it's just been a very fun, sub fight that I don't think a lot of people are paying attention to.
Well, I mean, and that's that, and the sub fight. I mean, I think it people did start paying attention to, thanks to Jon Stewart coming back to the Daily Show, because that face that Powell made when Trump started saying, "Oh yeah, the numbers are this," and that, and back to where we started at the top of this deal. He's the human, starting pistol. He opened his mouth, he said what he said, and now everybody's like, okay, well, let's check the numbers. And I mean, we've probably seen until this point, and when people are watching this podcast, they're going to be saying to themselves, how many times did I see when the Republicans don't math, when the numbers don't math, you make up the numbers, right?
Oh yeah.
And that's what Powell is shaking his head at, because he's saying, and you even hear him very clearly as day, he's like, well, you're adding in this, and that's not what that didn't lead to that. And so you can't, but and the president gets very, thrown off, because, he's supposed to be the businessman. He's supposed to be the guy that knows how to do this. Now, hate to remind everybody, yeah, he's the businessman who's filed for bankruptcy how many times? I mean, let's face facts. I mean, the fact is the fact of the fact that, this president has more bankruptcies than either you or I.
And then what is he doing? He is using time-tested, historic democratic policies of international tariffs on other countries to balance the production and manufacturing here in this country and create more U.S.-made products so that U.S. businesses and U.S. workers can make more money. To me, I still see a lot of irony in that entire paradigm, Sisto. It's funny for me to think that, almost 30 years ago, Democrats in Congress were proposing and fighting Republicans. We're fighting Newt Gingrich with the exact same policies that Trump and the Republicans are fully embracing today. It's pretty funny.
And it's hilarious. But I mean, you can see how the messaging of just one individual, the human starting pistol, has driven the narrative completely in one direction. And how is that playing out with Gen Z and millennials? Well, I think that Gen Z and millennials are saying, for you and me, back in the day when we started getting involved in politics, you had to pick a side to get engaged, right? You had to pick a Democrat or a Republican. There were not a lot of independents running around getting elected. I think it was halfway through our time of getting involved that we actually saw Jesse Ventura shock us all and become governor of Minnesota. Right.
Minnesota. Well, he had the body.
Yeah. And I mean, to quote another great political philosopher, Ric Flair, in order to be the man, you got to beat the man. And so,
right.
At the end of the day, we've got to start looking at those voters and those younger voters and why they're not gravitating to either party is probably because they're not getting a clear message from either party of what they stand for.
Nail on the head once again, Sisto, but you said it, right? In order to beat the man, you got to be the man. And what are we seeing? Like, here comes Gavin Newsom, right? Saying, bring it on. You're going to gerrymander in Texas. I'm going to gerrymander in California, right? Like some really interesting political fights happening in presidential politics. You got Ruben Gallego is out in Iowa. He's flipping flapjacks. The heck is Ruben doing? I was watching him. He was almost wearing the Sydney Sweeney, get up. But he's got his buckle. He's flipping his flapjacks. I'm like, you go, Ruben. It's so funny. And I know he's out there. He's working on some angles. You have Wes Moore, right, in Maryland, coming after Trump on the, national disaster stuff, right? Like there's some movement. There's some momentum. But I still come back to the fact that, like, they're all great people. You and I know many of them. There's still an echo chamber within the party of we have to meet these certain criteria, the checklist, right? We have to appease this whole angle. Then we can move forward. But at that time, people become bored frankly, to the narratives that
Yeah.
Democrats are preaching.
Well, I talked to a lot of I talked to a lot of the youngins, as I call them, the youngins, the millennials and the Gen
Youngins?
Zers, the youngins, because like you said, I'm much more engaged on social media than a lot of other folks, and I'm always surprised when I run into these millennials and these Gen Zs, and they say, you're coming to meet us at where we're at, right? I'm on their platforms. I'm talking to them now. I haven't done Slack, or I'm not doing Discord. I'm not doing a lot of that other stuff, but I'm trying to meet them where they're at. And you look at some of these campaigns that are out there right now that we're going to be talking about here in the next 6 months, are they truly coming to the table with a message that's meeting those younger voters out where they're at? Because if we don't start doing that, there's not going to be an Eddie. There's not the podcast will die with you and me, buddy, because we'll be the last two here making the stand. So we've got to come up with a plan, on both sides of the aisle. Both sides need to start talking about those issues. Both of those communities need to start talking better to us old guys in Gen X who, we've been raised on, as my family used to say, vas a tomar la escoba, go drink from the hose. That's where you go get your water when you're out in the sun playing. And
That's right.
and in the West,
It's the most tasty.
yeah. So that's something that we need to start talking about. That's something that our folks, our leaders need to start thinking about, is meeting people out where they're at. That's the overarching message. Meet them where they're at.
Yeah. But full circle again, Stusto. I mean, I want, right, this podcast, the narratives in the political sphere. I mean, ultimately, I want young people to vote. I think young people's votes can help influence and change policy for the better, right? Creating a more holistic narrative. But am I optimistic about that? No. I've seen it. I've seen candidates. I was talking to a friend who's like, oh, I think that the Zoran guy from New York City, he might do it, right? And all these young people are excited about Zoran. I'm like, man, young people don't vote. Now, maybe he wins because he's got a D in the D after the general election in New York City, perhaps. I mean, we'll see how that plays out. But I don't think it's going to be because of the young vote. Well, but we'll see. I want to be wrong.
Well, I hope that we start seeing more of these candidates. I'm excited to see the enthusiasm that they're bringing to the platform, and it's great. And it makes me feel a little bit more hopeful for the future that they're engaging in different ways than what we were used to it, and they're a little bit more they have that same optimism that Eddie had of telling his campaign staff, we're going to target these 18 to 25-year-olds and get out there.
I wish I had a little bit more of that, huh? What happened to that optimism?
Gosh. We got old and prickly, bud. I mean, that's the bottom line of it. So moving quickly to our closing, we started coming up with this last time. We started talking about this. So here we are again at the end of our show. And so we want to have something impolitically.
Okay, so by impolitically, you mean that's Spanish for spicy, correct?
That's Spanish for spicy. I mean, I know spicy, that okay. I mean, you've heard it.
Because we're a Southwest show.
We're a Southwest show. Well, I mean, we're a Southwest show, but the spicy is even different between you and me in Texas and New Mexico and Arizona. Do they have spicy in Utah? Is there spicy?
Absolutely.
Where is there spicy in Utah? Because I haven't found it yet.
Yeah, there's a couple New Mexican restaurants
really
that have been brought to Provo area. Yeah.
Nice. So I mean,
pretty cool.
So anybody who's in Provo listening to the show, go to a New Mexican restaurant, find out what we're talking about. We're talking about New Mexico spicy. And
that's the ones where you eat it and your scalp starts sweating. And
or you just lose it all like this here. I mean, that's what happened.
Yeah.
Eventually, you just go completely bald and you have nothing left, and then
that's because you ate too much red, right?
No, it's too much green. It's because I did Christmas. So impolitically, what do you got for me, Eddie?
All right. Well, I'm going to go to Utah, right? Because in Utah, they passed this law. It's called Utah Fits All. It's this tax rebate to parents who have kids that don't get enrolled in the public school system. And if you don't do it, you can submit some of your expenses. It's almost like a tracking account. Certain educational expenses you can get reimbursed for. Little scholarship for people, and it's targeted towards low-income families. This program has been under significant national scrutiny. It's not a voucher program, right? This is not a dollar for dollar pay your tuition. It's something to help subsidize the cost of someone who's not in the public education system. And it's getting almost 68 to 70% favorability in Utah amongst people. That's not how many people are using it. They just see it as an opportunity for others. But you pull back Utah and you look at what's happening nationally in education, NEA and all the different groups, criticism, not just criticism. They're suing Utah. They're coming out suing Utah because of they don't want this narrative to move forward. My impolitical statement is that it's about time for our education system to wake up, right? Right? Like, let's use that congressman. It's time for them to wake the bleep up because families, parents, you said youngins, but it's youngkins. The youngkin Republicans and Democrats that voted for him in Virginia, families want choices and opportunities for their kids. Doesn't matter how it is, but they don't want to be forced into a system of one size fits all. And you sit there, you shut up, and you do as I say, right?
True.
So instead, parents are embracing something different. I think it's a cool idea. Other states should look at it.
Okay. What do you got for me that's prickly, Eddie? Come on.
Oh, all right. So Democrats, I mean, you're getting fast and loose with this term genocide. Like, we're not about to get into some hot stuff here, but I mean, the UN established the baseline of what genocide is. And I'm watching Democrats on social media. I'm watching the Elizabeth Warrens of the world throw out, and Bernie Sanders throwing out terms like genocide, when, first of all, nothing has there's regions in the world that are in conflict, right? Gaza, Russia, Ukraine, Sudan, right? If we really want to talk about genocide, we need to look to Mali and Sudan. What's happening in Sudan is ethnic cleansing, where there is intentional movement by certain tribes to eliminate holistically an ethnicity within Sudan. But we're focused on a very nuanced issue in the Middle East that is sensitive to a lot of people. And, I think that the Democrats are once again taking their gun that they want to ban, aiming it at their foot and shooting 5 times by constantly using the term genocide when it is not applicable at all. There are murders happening on both sides. There is war happening. It is sad. It breaks my heart. We need peace in the Middle East. But Democrats are not adding to the big tent by using that type of language.
Okay. And quickly, what do you got for me quickly?
Oh, last time I was in Washington, D.C., Sisto, I had to navigate the streets on my paid electric scooter, and I could not ride it on the sidewalk. You know why?
Because it's not allowed.
No, well, it's not allowed, but everyone rides on the sidewalk. We couldn't because there's homeless people laying all across every sidewalk in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
Every corner I turned on, marijuana smells everywhere. So quickly, it's interesting. I don't know if I support what Trump is doing on the Washington, D.C. thing, but I'm intrigued because the last experience I had was the government in D.C. is certainly not taking care of protecting and creating environments that are safe and secure.
Okay. Well, I mean,
how about you?
Right now,
let's go.
In politically, we're right here at the beginning, middle of August. You guys will be seeing this and you'll be hearing a lot about a special session here in the state of New Mexico coming up. And the impolitical part is we're having a special session for what? We don't have a deal. Legislators haven't been talked to. I'm hoping that, by the time this airs, that they'll have aired it out and they'll figure out what's going to happen. Talked to a number of members the last couple of days, and each and every one of them are like, Sisto, I don't know why. Do you know why? And I'm like, You're the guy with the vote. I'm just the guy that, hangs out in the halls. That's all I am. So I just want, that's going to be something that's coming up. The governor's talking about bringing folks in for two reasons. A bunch of crime bills and some gun enhancement bills, but also, which he has recently rolled out, is shutting down immigration facilities that house immigrants before transport here in New Mexico, taking that ability from local municipalities, not letting them hold them in their facilities. A good friend of mine, the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, Joseph Cervantes, had the best line of when this idea floated out, is that I understand that this is a problem, but if they don't house them here, they're going to house them somewhere else. And what's going to end up happening to these individuals, they're going to be further away from their families. Their families aren't going to have direct access to them. We're not going to be able to protect them under the laws of the state of New Mexico, which they will have an abundance of protections being in one of our facilities. So it's an interesting conversation that we're going to start having about. So that's going to be an interesting one. Prickly. So
you got to get prickly. Before we go prickly, I just want to say, man, Representative Cervantes, what a stud. That dude is awesome.
Senator
I think he's an up-and-comer.
Yes.
Oh, Senator
Cervantes. Senator Cervantes.
Senator
Cervantes.
Sorry to demote you, sir.
Yeah. So let him know that, Senator Cervantes, we got a little bit of love for you. But at the same time, prickly, it's this idea of the fact that we're going to be able to fix, crime in New Mexico with a few bills in a couple of weeks. It ain't going to happen, folks. Ain't going to happen. There's no way that we've had a 60-day legislative session where we were debating a lot of these bills. We were seeing them all on the table, where we were talking about them. I mean, if anybody has some time on their hands and wants to get really bored, go to the legislative website. It's a heck of a lot of fun. They archive all the committee hearings, courts and corrections. Go watch the last one. Guarantee you guys that you'll have a great time watching, because that's where the action really is happening. Also, the other controversial opinion that I have in regards to all of that is the big, beautiful bills impact to state budgets. We were worried about what was going to happen with state budgets. And the bill comes out, and we're seeing that there's triggers that don't happen immediately. They may happen down the road, and we don't even know exactly what's going to happen. So, we jumped the gun a little bit on that one, but we'll see where it goes in the next 8 to 10 months and where we land. Quickly, at the end of the day, rapid fire thought. School started. Our kids are back in school. And we're going to start finding out whether or not our kids are going to, and the kids that have started right now are all the COVID kids. They're the first kids in kindergarten. And we're going to see how they're going to fare at the end of this school year. I had a good friend of mine who's an educator reach out to me on social media. This woman has been a saint in the kindergarten classroom for years. She loves her kids. She loves her time. A lot of folks, everybody was seeing a lot of memes about these kids coming in and that there was going to be issues with these kids. I have never seen her so scared in my life after her first week with the COVID kids. The COVID kids are going to end up, proving how good teachers really are in our country. So that's the next one. Want to thank everybody for tuning in with me and Eddie again. We hope you guys go to our social media pages, that you like us on Facebook, like us on TikTok, like us on YouTube. Your likes and your subscribes help us so much. Visit our website, sign up for our newsletter so that you guys get exactly what's coming in as it's happening. And also talk to us. Me and Eddie, we're not afraid. I got my Gen X, I got my Gen X cap on, It's
seriously, when you see Sisto walking down the streets in Albuquerque, run out there, turn on the hose, share with him.
Yeah.
Come on.
Share the Scova with me, folks.
Share.
I want to thank you guys for helping us. I want to thank Mandy Nunez on our team, Gabe Baca, for helping put this together. And we look forward to seeing you guys next time. Thanks so much for stopping in.